On this week's episode of the Inward Investing Podcast,
I talk about whey protein and answer the most frequently asked questions I get about supplementing protein. We haven't caught up in a while. What's on your mind?
Mike, what's on my mind is a little blurb of an article. I'm going to read it. You have no idea what it says, so
Go ring it.
University of California professor Frank M. I can't
Underwood.
pronounce his Mittelherner gave pro-real meat interests an interesting talking point with the observation that the ingredients in the two leading plant-based meatless burgers are almost identical to those in dog food. The brands Impossible Burger and Beyond Meat both contain over 20 highly processed ingredients commonly used in pet foods. Flavors and coloring are the only ingredients used in vegetable-based burgers, but not dog food.
Holy smokes.
So vegans should just eat dog food.
Might as well. The meatless burger, I think it's obviously well intended. People are trying to do the right thing, but I don't think some people, I guess, haven't really thought it through enough. In the fact that it's a highly processed food item, like you just said, and there's still a lot of external cost to make it, so it's very expensive for people to buy.
Yes.
So you have something with a lot of whatever the lab cost is to grow it. You have excess corn, soy, and wheat tillage going on. So in order to make that happen, a lot of rodents, birds, snakes, not very cute animals still have to die. Like there are more animals dying by that farming mechanism than there is from the meat industry. And you could argue that, I don't know what the argument would be, but it's really like what animals do you want to save? The cute ones or all animals? Yeah. So in the end, if you really want to be a part of this problem, you brought up something that's obviously a hot button for me. We had Diana Rogers on the podcast. Go back and listen to that episode. I can't remember what episode number it was, but go back and listen to that. She is raising money for a documentary called Sacred Cow, and they are giving a balanced argument to regenerative agriculture and how it can improve the environment, which is what everybody's after, give you a really quality product, but then also have a better net effect on the environment than the Impossible Burger.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I lead a gluten-free lifestyle, right? And
do you wear the T-shirts?
No. But
do you tell everyone about it?
No. Only when we're out to eat.
All the time?
Like, oh my God, why are you gluten-free? But anyway.
Only all the time.
Yeah. I bring it up like at least twice an hour. All right, I like twice every half hour. No, so when we first went gluten-free, it was like, oh, this is gluten-free, let me get this. Oh, this is gluten-free, let me get this. And it's like, all right, this is highly processed gluten-free food, right? So
yes.
Like, in defense of this meatless burger, right? I'm sure if you look at something else that's just regular, like a cookie or something like that, like Oreos. What's in an Oreo? Like, I don't know. Could be the same exact stuff, but then cream filling isn't, right? So going back to what we were talking about a couple episodes ago, eat real food, right? So like you can buy processed food just as bad as this if you're not eating a meatless burger.
Yeah.
You can buy just as bad as food, doing any type of diet that you have, like keto, low carb, high carb, low fat, no fat, whatever. You're going to find processed food everywhere. But you have to make the conscious choice to eat the real food over like these highly processed things. Like, it's not hard to eat real food.
Yeah. It's really not as hard. I mean, it's hard to change your habits, but it's not, the action itself isn't hard.
Yeah.
And it's always better to simplify those things. And when you say just eat real food, it simplifies the whole process. And yeah,
shop on the outside of the grocery store.
That was
not outside the grocery store. That's the creepy stuff. But like, go to follow the perimeter of the grocery store, the inside of the grocery store.
Right.
That's where you're going to find the meats, you're going to find the veggies, the fruits, and like the cold stuff that will perish if it's not cold, which is probably a good thing.
Yeah. So rule number 1, make sure you go inside the grocery store.
Yes. Don't buy food outside the grocery store.
Don't buy food outside the grocery store.
And if it's not sketchy food, it's little Girl Scout cookies or candy bars. Not good.
Shop on the outer rim and avoid as much as you can the innards.
The innards.
The innards of the grocery store. The evil innards.
All right, Mike. Now that we know where to shop in a grocery store, I still want to get some more protein in my diet. And that's going to lead us into our whey or no whey conversation here. So what should I look for in a supplement? Because I do eat a lot of food. However, I don't get all my micro and macronutrients through my whole food. So take it away, toys.
So this is a loaded topic, obviously. And I'm glad we brought up the Impossible Burger, because when you're talking about food, you're going to be dealing with a lot of preconceived notions about what is good and what is bad. I think it makes things easier to think about when we can label something good or bad. I know when I get a consult, somebody comes in for the first time and they're motivated, one of the first things I'll ask for is like, hey, give me a food. What shouldn't I eat? What's good and what's bad? And we start using these terms. And so I want to make something very clear, is that some of you might be completely opposed to supplements. I know there are a lot of people out there that try to get everything from Whole Foods, and that's okay. I don't think there's anything necessarily wrong with that belief. I know some people that rely heavily on supplements. I don't think there's anything wrong with that belief. I think there's pros and cons to both. There's truth in each one. And what I would ask you to do is, instead of thinking of protein or supplements in general as good or bad, keep an open mind and look at it as good, better, best, and options that are good in certain situations and not so much in others. So no matter who you are, if you're listening to this, you're going to have to take a little personal context with this and not think of it so much as hard set rules, but as guidelines, as a way to think and choose moving forward. So first of all, I think protein is specifically a good topic because it is the most essential macronutrient. Like, you literally can't live without it, and inadequate intake can cause a whole host of health problems. Now, one thing about the RDA guidelines, when you go to our government's website and all the dietary information is on there, they'll have a recommended intake for total protein. It's important to note that our government's recommended daily intakes of specifically protein is your minimum. Okay, so they're giving you a minimum that you should take in order to avoid health problems. People can take anywhere up to even 2 grams per pound of body weight, depending on how healthy your digestive system is, depending on how much muscle mass you have and your need. There's protein. We have a lot of leeway with protein, but one thing is for sure is you definitely need enough. And your body will typically give you feedback when it's too much before it becomes a problem. If you are just plowing down 2 steaks at every dinner and you feel bloated and indigestion afterwards, probably not a good idea. But if you increase your protein intake and you feel much better from it, that's a good sign that you were under eating at some point. So there's a lot of ways to determine how much protein you need. We're not talking about that today. We're talking about whey protein as a way to help supplement the gap between what you're capable of eating on a daily basis due to budget and due to time and convenience. Okay. So protein powders can help solve all of those problems. It's very time friendly, it's very cost friendly, and it generally tastes amazing. Depending on what it's sweetened with, you got to watch out for that. If you can find a protein powder that's sweetened with stevia, probably your best bet. But this is a $5 billion industry on protein powders. So on one hand, you can get a lot of sales advice if you go to GNC and you don't know what you're talking about. If you're looking blankly at the wall, that is target practice for somebody at GNC to sell you whatever they want with as much mixed into it, this high they have all these protein powders that have all this stuff mixed into it and all these blends. And, I think the question ends up being like, what do I really need? Mm-hmm. And so let's talk about that.
I remember, so I was born in 1985, so I'm not that old. I remember the first protein powder that I got was like cake batter. It was disgusting. Ooh. And like, it was like the mixture was like this. We had to mix it in like a bowl because it was such a like large amount. It was disgusting. It was gross. And now they taste like they have flavor for everything. It's like cotton candy, cinnamon toast crunch cereal, yes. Fruit Loops, cookies and cream, chocolate, vanilla, French vanilla, Dutch chocolate. Like
they want to make it feel like dessert.
Yeah, exactly. But I'm not complaining because it's delicious.
Absolutely. So on that note, you have a lot more taste options than we used to have when I started doing this. So now the flavors might be the only thing all protein powders have in common, though. There are, in fact, better and worse protein powders, and people that are even experienced don't always know the difference. There are some reasons why some powders might be better for you and others might be better for your friend. But if you've done your research, you probably already have a pretty good start, and the right protein powder for you should be easily digested with very little kickback from the gut. So you shouldn't be getting bubble guts, every time you drink it. You also want a high quality one, meaning that it's not full of additives and fillers and binding agents. But you don't want to pay too much, and advertising seems to produce more questions than they solve. So some questions that we get very frequently is grass-fed protein worth it? You'll see that on the label. Grass-fed protein powder. Mm-hmm. Is isolate better than concentrate? Is native whey more anabolic? Meaning, does it help you grow more muscle? And is organic really worth it? You'll see organic on the label. Are casein or plant-based proteins better? And what do all these marketing terms mean? So those are some questions that I get. These are the heavy hitters, and I think these particular FAQs I'm going to cover right now, and that should help answer the whole thing. So number one, let's go back to what you just said. Can't I just get my protein from whole foods? And so I think fundamentally, I would love it if everyone could get all of their protein from health foods, or whole foods rather. Whether you're fundamentally opposed to protein powders or simply uneducated on the idea, we should try to get all of the protein we can from whole foods. The bioavailability of nutrients in whole foods outshoots supplements 10 times out of 10 trials, but powders still have some advantages. So when I say bioavailable, that means you take in a nutrient and it actually gets absorbed. B12, synthetic B12, is notably less bioavailable than B12 that comes from food. That has to do with a lot of enzymes, bacteria, a lot of the organic matter, some fats that come along with it. Like whole foods have a way of synergistically working together once they get in the gut. So I will say that protein powders don't necessarily have as much absorbability, but animal-based protein powders have a digestibility rate of over 90%. So over 90% of that gets actually digested into the system, but whole plant-based proteins from legumes and grains, which is typically what they come from, have digestibility rates of only about 60 to 80%. So over 90% of an animal-based protein will get absorbed through the gut, and about 60 to 80%. A good protein powder has a specific amount of protein and are generally very low in carbs and fat. So if you're taking a protein powder, one of the biggest advantages is that you can actually calculate how much protein you need, shoot for that number without having to worry about extra carb and fat intake. And that can vary in whole foods. So although you may pay upwards, as far as the cost goes, like although you might pay upwards of 50 to 60 for a really good container of protein, the price per serving can still be lower than, say, a sirloin steak or a ribeye. And especially in plants. Like if you're getting all of your protein from plants, you can do it. You just need such a wide variety, and per ounce, veggies are more expensive. That's definitely not a reason to not get veggies, but accumulating enough volume to get enough protein, digestible protein, you're gonna have to spend a heck of a lot more money. As far as cleanliness, like with no kitchen equipment or oils, shakes are really easy to prepare. You can clean up after yourself really easy. It's like a rinse and a scrub. Shakes are super easy to digest, which is an advantage, especially when your digestive system is not operating to full capacity, such as after a workout. So you're kicking it at CrossFit Park or Tampa Movement Lab here. You're doing a high-intensity workout like we did today. We had 5 rounds of 8 deadlifts, 8 toe to bar, 8 push-ups. We started that off with a 1,000-meter row buy-in. Right after you're done with that, all of your blood flow is going to your limbs. Okay, you reduce a lot of blood flow to the digestive system. So you take protein, which is the most difficult macronutrient for your body to absorb and break down, and you're taking a body that has no digestive capacity at that time. Well, obviously it's going to be a problem if you eat a steak or a chicken breast at that time. It's probably going to cause more digestive problems. So right then, since having some protein right after workout helps build muscle, you have that anabolic window there. Who knows how long it really lasts, but the sooner the better typically. That shake comes in really, really handy because it's almost like a pre-digested form of protein.
So it gets in the bloodstream and then shuttles to where it needs to go to help repair and help you recover.
Yeah, there's a lot less breakdown that needs to happen. So while your stomachs are low on acids and enzymes and blood flow, you're really giving yourself a hand. That's one advantage you would have over real foods. So question 2, one that I get is, can whey protein powder replace whole foods entirely? So on the other side of the coin, well, I have bad news for you. That's not true. As I think there are some people that would just rather take shakes. I don't know what the hang-up is, but I know at least one study demonstrated that replacing half of your daily whole food protein with whey didn't meaningfully affect physical fitness or body composition, but you definitely still need whole foods because of all the organic matter I mentioned before, your vitamins, your minerals, enzymes. There's still things that we don't know about whole foods entirely that has a synergistic effect. As an example, there's a study, I posted this on the blog a while ago, about how much more DHA ends up in the bloodstream after eating salmon than taking fish oil. There's something magic in food that helps synergistically create this whole bioavailability thing that we keep talking about. You actually digest more. And so, yes, body composition-wise, you could probably get away with a lot more protein shakes, but health-wise, it's not going to last long. Big one, question 3, what's the difference between milk powder and whey protein powder? So as you're going through the grocery store and you're looking at milk powder, yes, milk powder is 20% whey and the rest is casein. The problem is that skim milk powder is fat-free but not carbohydrate-free. And one of the advantages of protein powder is that you get to measure the amount of protein. If I need, say, 180 grams of protein a day and I've hit my carb threshold, say I'm supposed to eat 250 and I've already eaten that, but I still need 30 more grams of protein.
Shake
it up.
Shake it up.
And a matter of fact, the main issue people have with whey protein, or milk rather, is lactose. That's a big issue for people. And that carbohydrate is mainly lactose in milk. So if you need the extra carbohydrates, I can see milk powder being an option. But typically the reason we use shakes in the first place is to give you a specific amount of protein, a measurable amount of protein, a consistent amount of protein without the excess carbohydrate. But most whey protein concentrates are 80% protein and very low in carbohydrate. Number 4. Okay, I actually got this in an email. Is whey the best protein source? So whey is definitely one of the best. And so as I mentioned before, as a higher absorbability rate than plant-based proteins, being over 90%, plant-based being 60 to 80%, crushes the rest as far as absorbability goes. But also a little side note is that in terms of essential amino acids, whey contains about 52% of essential amino acids. So those are the ones your body doesn't produce. 13.6% of leucine. So leucine is one of the big heavy hitters as far as it helps with digestion. It helps muscle protein synthesis. It actually helps kick off the muscle growth itself.
That happen.
Yeah, so it's really high where plant-based protein has the contents itself is only 7 to 8%, so it's about half of leucine. So plant-based proteins, you can still get the job done. They're just less efficient. You have to drink a lot more of it to get the same thing down. If it's a moral issue and you're still tied to the plant-based idea, obviously I'm not going to change your mind there. But as far as efficiency goes, whey protein kicks its butt. Protein, bro. So question 5. Is isolate better than concentrate? So when you get into the aisle, so now we've narrowed our option down to whey protein being a much better option. You're also going to get sold regular whey protein. You're going to get sold whey isolate, and then whey concentrate, and then a third one, hydrolysate. So a quick rundown on that is that there's basically no difference between the whey concentrates and isolates in terms of amino acid. There's no difference in terms of digestibility. Their effects on muscle mass or strength, virtually identical. Isolates just contain less fat and carbs. So the only reason that you would pick one versus the other is basically your lactose intolerance. So if you're having trouble with other forms of whey and you haven't tried isolate, you have a much lower carb, which is lactose, much lower lactose content in your isolates. So if I think other than that, it would just come down to cost and preference. Hydrolysates are considered to be pre-digested forms of protein. So like they're just more broken down, but they haven't really been proven to be more bioavailability or actually digest faster than concentrates or isolates. So sometimes they cost more. Might not be actually worth the cost. Plus, your digestive enzymes produce peptides as a byproduct of digesting protein. So peptides have a lot of roles in the body. So like once you start digesting protein, you start creating these peptides. So problem is that hydrolysates, since they're naturally denatured, they may mean that you get the strength benefit from them, but your body won't produce the benefit of this health-promoting peptides, and those have to do with a lot of processes like immune system function, as an example. So, yeah, are you really hurting yourself as far as muscle goes? No, probably one or the other. They're probably going to be good, but isolates better for people who are lactose intolerant. You might still be able to do a whey isolate, depending on the degree of intolerance.
Now, do you think because of the magic that happens in real food, do you think taking a whey concentrate will have more of those magic things to help?
Yes.
Absorption and like all like the cofactors or whatever that are happening?
Yeah, I think it's less.
Because it's less processed?
Less processed means you're still going to have some there. It's not going to be as close as whole food, but yeah, I think if we're looking at all these side benefits, the less touches, the better. Yeah. And that's a really good point. Like we have to think about food more than just it's more than just protein. We have to stop calling foods good and bad. I think even hydrolysates, even if that's something that you just happen to tolerate really, really well, just everything else upsets your stomach, or I don't know.
That's the best flavor.
That's the best flavor
protein that you like.
Yeah, go for it. But just know you're not getting some of these extra side benefits, and at the root of it, whole foods will always win.
So I don't know if this is your next one, but I heard you mention it before, and I've heard it a couple times. Native whey protein. So I don't know if that was your next one or not, but I think it would tie in right now, like how we're going, like concentrate, isolate, hydrolysate, hydrolysized.
Native basically just means like an attempt to get the most pure form of whey into a supplement, and it's processed a little differently. There's a little higher leucine content. However, from the studies that I've seen, and I have it right here in front of me, I can link it into the blog. So for any nerds out there that really want to dig in, there is really not much difference as far as recovery goes. It says here that DOMS was not differentiated by each supplement, so your delayed onset muscle soreness. Jumping power was not significantly impacted by native versus another form. And they said there seemed to be an enhanced energy in the athletes from native whey versus concentrates and isolates. But they said that could also be placebo. So I'm not seeing much of a difference between native and other ones.
So maybe because it has higher amino acids, it would just like most likely increase like probably blood plasma concentrations of these, but not necessarily like.
But not signal any more growth.
Yeah, growth or strength or anything like that.
Yeah, there was another one. If you go in and read my article series, so I have a whole article series on the blog. So if you're listening right now and you want to dig in deeper beyond this, get into the blog. One of the big differences with BCAAs and casein is that you see some of these proteins getting into the bloodstream faster, but in the end don't trigger or initiate any more muscle protein synthesis than others. So what that process is beyond that, we're not seeing any difference. Higher blood concentrations, but not in the end any greater effect. And the article series explains that in deeper process. So I would say the next question I want to cover is the label. So speaking of food labels and native whey, there's also one grass-fed protein. So
it's better because it's grass-fed and everything.
Got to be better if it's grass-fed.
Right?
Not so fast, my friend.
What?
Yes.
No way.
No way, my friend. This is a two-sided question. One is that you got the nutrient side of things, and then you have, I do feel the responsibility to talk about a little bit of the environmental aspect of this, but grass-fed beef, the product itself, the only real difference between conventional beef and grass-fed beef is the fatty acid and nutrient profile of it. So if we're talking about supplementing with protein, you're not getting the fats out of it, and you're not getting much of that nutrient profile anyways. So there really isn't much of a difference when it gets boiled down to a powder. I will say, compared to grain-fed beef, grass-fed beef is definitely higher in CLA, definitely higher in omega-3s, vitamin A, E, and even antioxidants. So not many people realize that red meat does have antioxidants, stuff that actually fight oxidative damage, specifically glutathione. But the protein itself seems to be relatively unaffected. So if you're choosing to buy grass-fed protein, you can do it because I feel like we've already seen a change in our food industry because of buyer behavior. And when you buy something that says grass-fed on the label, you're signaling the industry, I want more of this. I want higher quality. I'm paying attention to how you're raising this. I'm paying attention to the process. And when larger corporations, like Kraft, for instance, months ago, bought Primal Kitchen, Mark Sisson's Primal Kitchen business that he made from the ground up. Started with avocado, 4-ingredient mayonnaise, salad dressings with all non-processed whole ingredients. Kraft just bought him. Bought part of it. Yeah. And, I know there was a little backlash from like the paleo community and stuff that, he sold out and whatnot. I don't think so. I think that no matter what, these companies want to sell stuff. They're not evil. They want to sell stuff.
Yeah,
and
they're greedy. They're not evil. They want to make money.
Big difference. And they felt like he had captured enough of a market share that they needed to be a part of it. He became competition. And so that's a perfect example of how buyer behavior can change things. It can change things at the highest level. And so when you're buying stuff, grass-fed and pasture-raised animals have a huge positive impact on the environment. White Oak Pastures just cashed in a huge study about their net carbon on the environment, and they are way better than any conventional farm right now. And they're using ruminant animals along with 5 different ruminant animals with organic vegetables all on one farm. It's called a polyculture farm, and they're getting huge data-driven studies showing a positive effect. So if you're buying that label, I think that's the only reason you would do it, is to put a vote in the column of grass-fed, pasture-raised, higher quality, and signaling the industry you want more of that.
But you don't need to necessarily pay $20 more for the same protein just because it says grass-fed.
That's where it's going to be. I don't think you're wrong if you don't do it. I think if you don't want to spend the extra money, you're not getting much more out of it.
Brand A, and they have brand A whey, concentrate, isolate, whatever.
Yep.
And then brand A grass-fed for $20 more. Probably save your $20.
You could probably save your $20. But if you feel that moved to be a part of a movement, some people have a different why. I don't blame you either for doing that. So I'm not going to make fun of you for wasting your money. I think you're putting a vote in something that means something to you. And then I'm not going to bash somebody for not doing it. I think from a nutrient perspective, you're not missing much.
And most likely the reason to purchase the grass-fed whey protein it's probably going to have less filler in it because it's probably going to be a quote healthier protein powder because it's grass-fed. So people looking at that are probably the more informed audience. So they're probably going to put less processed stuff in it and filler in it to make it taste better. It's probably going to be, so that's probably the reason to spend the extra $20 because it was probably less stuff.
That's a great point. So they are creating a product for a smarter consumer. Therefore, they're going to take a little more care in other things as well.
Because I've noticed that because I've been a big supplement nerd since I graduated high school. Like I would stay up late, like reading about supplements. It's been something I always enjoyed. I tried to go like the whole I don't need real food. I mean, I didn't completely eliminate real food, but I was like, oh, well, I have this protein shake in the morning with like this little bit of real food, and then this protein shake and this supplement, and then this one and this one and this one, and it was unbelievably crazy the amount of supplements sometimes I would take, but learned a lot about them, and like I've since toned it way down to like essential stuff, but for a little while I was doing the grass-fed whey protein and noticed that like the ingredient list was just shorter. Yeah. Right, it had a little bit different of a taste, not as sweet, not as quote good, less flavors, but I noticed that it was just like I said, the ingredient list was shorter because they were putting less stuff in it. Still same amount of protein and everything like that, but just in a different taste. That was pretty much it. Yeah. But probably because of sweeteners and other things to make the other ones taste better.
Yeah. So I would say if we were recapping here, one, you made a great point. Always look at the back of the label. The ingredient list might matter the most. Okay? Whey protein, as far as digestibility and absorbability, is going to outshoot all of the others. Plant-based protein, not a bad idea, but you have to do a little more work and it might be a little more costly. And then your grass-fed label, again, always just look at the back because there may be a grass-fed protein that isn't as good because more companies are cashing in now. But chances are, like you said, if that company tends to have a little more of the health conscious part of it in mind and not the cost element. So really that's the lot of it. If you can get a good concentrate, if you are lactose intolerant or you have a lactose issue with whey, you might want to try an isolate. And if that doesn't work, then try a plant-based protein. I would go that route and look at the back of the label for caking agents, additives, stuff you can't pronounce. Definitely kick those to the curb. And then still try to get 80% or more of your protein intake from whole foods.
So also, speaking of the label, sometimes you'll see a whey protein blend, or it'll just say 100% whey protein. It won't say like if it's 100% whey isolate, like it's probably whey isolate, but sometimes it'll say like 100% whey. And if you look at the back, sometimes it'll say like 80% concentrate, 20% whey, or 10% isolate, 10% this and 10% that, or even like a blend, and it'll be like 80% casein protein and 20% whey protein, because it technically has whey protein, so they can call it a whey protein.
Bingo.
So that's another thing, like when you're at the supplement stores around the world, to check, like make sure like, okay, this is a I want to get a whey protein concentrate. All right, look at the back. Oh, this only has 40% whey protein concentrate, and the others, whatever else. So like try and look at that. And another good thing with protein powders, it's a little bit of math, not hard math. For every gram of protein, it's 4 calories. So if you have a 20-gram jug of it says 20 grams per serving, right? So 4 times 20 is 80 calories from protein. So if that thing has 180 calories, there's 100 calories of something else in that, right? So the ones that are the better protein, if you have, say it's 20 grams of protein, so 4 calories per gram, it's 80 calories, and this protein has 90 calories in it. That's almost every single thing that you're drinking is just protein in that specific shake. But if you have something that's 200 calories and you only have 80 grams or 80 calories coming from protein, that's 120 calories of filler. Tastes good-ish stuff.
Yeah, that's probably your cookies and cream. Tastes amazing.
Exactly, yeah.
Never cakes up on the side of the cup. If your protein doesn't cake at all, you have some serious ish in there, and you might want to find a different option. I know it's gonna be really hard for you to get rid of your banana split, super smooth, peanut butter, super flavorful.
There are some that can do it, but yeah, the less ingredients, the more protein concentration compared to the calorie count.
Yep,
is also a good thing to look.
But I think that'll wrap it up. We had a really good synopsis. I think you should be set up to go look for a really good protein powder. And if there's anything else you want us to clear up, just email us at inwardinvesting@gmail.com. If you have any training questions, if you haven't downloaded the beginner strength program that we just went through on the last podcast, please email us. I want to send it to you. Be a part of our newsletter where we have stuff like this. This protein article series came out in the newsletter over the last couple weeks. If you're already on it, then you've already read this stuff and you're just deepening your knowledge. You're expanding your nutrition program. You're tightening up some loose ends. I'm sure you've already gotten to the next level. And if you want any more information on this, just email us. Get a hold of us. And next week we have an interview coming out, which I'm super excited about. Marty Kendall. Marty Kendall started nutrientoptimizer.com, and this guy is one of the coolest. He has one of the coolest projects going right now, the Nutrient Optimizer. So make sure you tune into that. This has been the Inward Investing Podcast. I'm Mike Ritter.
I'm Todd Whalen.
And we will see you next week.